Welcome to Aquarium 911, where I help you with your aquarium problems. Today we have an email all the way from Scotland, so let's dig into a problem with blackbeard algae. Hi Bentley, Lori from Scotland. I've had blackbeard algae for 8 months. I've tried everything, but it always returns. The tank looks not bad just now, as I've been cleaning rocks, wood, etc., and dosing with Excel and hydrogen peroxide. The tank is 200 centimeters long, 120 centimeters high, and 40 centimeters wide. The temp is 24.3 degrees Celsius. So that's pretty close to I think about 76-ish degrees Fahrenheit for us dumb Americans who don't use the Celsius scale. KH, carbonate hardness, is 7, and GH, general hardnesses, at 7 as well. NT Labs test kit. I don't use CO2. Hope you can help. Love your videos. And then there's a couple pictures of the tank and the fish. I love your choice of fish. Just nice, simple, easy, straightforward fish. You've got some great looking plants in there. They look all pretty healthy. Noisy motorcycles outside in the house. Got some pleco caves. We've got some good plants. We got a bunch of what looks like sand, but it could be a gravel, really fine gravel, but it looks more like it's sand. And that might be our first culprit. So, but there's a couple follow-ups. So, Lori here, I forgot the lights. I had the Fluval Aquasky 3.0. Sunrise is from 8 to 9 a.m. Sunset from 1600 to 1700, so 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Night light nil, sleep at 1800. During the daylight cycle, reds are at 50%, greens 60%, blue 10%, white 70%. Okay, so we've got reasonably powerful light, but your tank is a good size, so with the Aquasky, it's not crazy, right? It's not like we're putting a plant 3.0 with that much power on, but there is a decent amount of light going in there. And there's a follow-up too. Sorry, I keep on missing information. I do a 25% weekly water change, and I vacuum the tank weekly. I have an Awaze Biomaster Mark II filter. I clean the pre-filter sponges weekly, and the main sponges and ceramic media monthly. Okay, so we've got an idea of our regime. The only thing we don't necessarily know is level of fertilizer we're doing with the plants, but I can kind of suspect you're probably doing something a more simple all-in-one or something like that, and you're dosing per instructions. We're not using CO2, so we probably don't need a ton of stuff, but one of the things that we are potentially running into, and this is the most common way that any form of algae forms in a planted tank, is we have something in excess and not enough in the balance of all of our nutrients to help the plants fight that off. So the plants will kind of go into this inactive cycle is the way to think about it. That's not scientifically accurate, but think of it as they're kind of they're going on break, and they're not doing all the photosynthesis they need to consume all the other things because maybe something's missing or out of balance to what they need, and they don't have everything they need to complete the photosynthetic process and create all that growth. So they kind of shut down temporarily, and they go in kind of like a stasis, and that's where algae can take hold and really go after any of the things that are in excess. Now, one thing that can happen with certain sands, depending on the particular sand you're using, things like pool filter sand are notorious for this, is they will raise the silicate levels in your water. And while this typically is only a major cause of something like browner algae, like diatom, it can also occasionally affect our other algae, like blackbeard. Now, what I have found is that I deal with blackbeard about once a year. It just happens in several of my tanks, no matter how many plants are in there, no matter what my fertilizer regime is, even with CO2, it will show up. And that just is the nature of my public available water and what is in it and what's gonna show up. It is just something that naturally creates a habitat where blackbeard algae has the opportunity to take hold, and it happens all the time. So I deal with it a lot. And like you, even though I can get rid of it for a while, it inevitably does come back because in the end, algae is always in our water, and algae is effectively omnipresent. The best thing that we can do is try to mitigate it to a point of where we barely see any of it, or when we do see it, it's simple things like light surface algae, like that kind of green spot, green dust algae, right? And we're not seeing big troughs of hair algae. We're not seeing this nonsense down here, which is driving me crazy, but it will get fixed, right? Or in your case, you're dealing with blackbeard algae. So we can keep spot dosing it, we can keep doing that kind of stuff, or we can take a slight change and we can look at potentially using our fish to do some work for us. Now, I know not everybody likes doing this, which is getting fish specifically to do algae control, but in your case, because you are using quite a few smaller fish, and I'm not seeing anything like potentially predatory, you might look into something like mono shrimps just based on your hardness, because you have both carbonate and general hardness. You have enough to probably keep a mono shrimp okay in there, or a couple of different types of snails. You could look at like neorites, or horned neorites especially are actually surprisingly good at eating types of hair algae. They can eat some blackbeard, I've heard. Or you might look at something like, say, a pandagora or Siamese algae eaters, or any of these other fish that are a bit more known for eating blackbeard algae, and they can help keep that algae in check long term while you make some other adjustments. But here's what I would do in general to mitigate that risk. All algae are very simple. They are very responsive to light changes far faster than plants are. So one thing you could try doing, I know you've probably tried a lot of things, and you might have even done this, is do a blackout where you turn your lights off, you wrap your tank up so no ambient light is occurring, and you leave that light off for about a week or so. And that usually puts a lot of damage on the algae or kills a lot of it off, and then your plants can recover and it becomes a little easier to manually remove and hopefully keep it at bay for quite a while. Now you can keep dosing Flourish Excel during this, but I would not go doing things like overfeeding, or you're not doing CO2 so you don't have to worry about that, or heavily fertilizing your tank during that blackout. After the blackout is complete, and you've done a nice water change, a little gravel vac, then you could resume some fertilization. Depending on how you're fertilizing, this might be the other thing where we could try spreading our fertilizer dose out so there's kind of a more consistent, lean amount of fertilizer in the tank, as opposed to I'm dosing, say, 3 pumps just based on the size of your tank, I'll guess, right, of whatever all-in-one that is like 1 pump, 10 gallons. I think things like Easy Green, Nylock G Thrive, etc., but all of them have their own dosing regime. But whatever the appropriate, like, once a week dose this much, right? So that causes a big spike in nutrients. It'll slowly taper off as the plants start to eat it, but it can leave some excesses because we're only doing a 25% water change, and that leaves an opportunity for things to slightly ramp up over time. And while it doesn't cause any ill effects to our fish, it allows things like algae to capitalize on those excesses and start growing and become kind of a pain, and then seemingly be almost impossible to get rid of. So what we might do is spread our fertilizer dosing out. So let's say we were doing 3 pumps, we would do that 3 days a week, as an example, and spread them out of 1 pump per, or whatever that dose is. Spread it as evenly across the week as you can, and do it at the same time you feed your fish. So it's as simple, I put some fish food in, I put a touch of fertilizer in, I'm done for the day, right? One of those things where we try to spread it out as much as possible in still a way that makes it as easy as we can for ourselves so that we're willing to do that little extra touch of work. And then when you're doing your water changes, consider upping that water change to something closer to about 50%. Extra water is always great for our fish. It's also great for our plants. And as long as you're not dealing with something like really scary in your water that requires a lot of extra chemicals or extra wait time, this should be a pretty easy adjustment that will help kind of fight that algae off at its root problem, or at least our suspected root problem, we'll put it that way, and make it a little easier to minimize it and prevent it from continually coming back, or at least when it does come back, it's less and less and less over time, and we can eventually kind of win that war through attrition, as opposed to some of the more aggressive ways, like the whole tank hydrogen peroxide method, or, you know, going in and being really crazy and like, I'm going to nuke the site from orbit and rip everything out and start fresh, or whatever, you know, crazy level method we would want to look at and go like, that's the only path we can do. It's not. We can do this slowly and easily, and hopefully that will also put us in good habits that prevent it long term. So feel free to get back to me. Let me know how it's been going. I know it's been a little bit since I've gotten to you. Hopefully these couple of simple pieces of advice give you the right steps to start, and maybe we add a little extra details if you realize like, oh, I forgot to include this in my testing, or like, here's how I've been doing my fertilizer. Maybe you're not fertilizing at all, and what we're running into is something is running out until we get a little bit of mineral content or something from a water change or some other source, and that's where our problem is, and we might be able to fix that really easily by adding in something like, oh, we find out we're low on micros, we need something like Flourish Trace, or maybe we just don't have enough nitrogen in the tank, we're perpetually testing these zero nitrates. We might want to add a small amount of an all-in-one to make sure that some nitrates are there so our plants can kind of continuously have available nutrients to do growth. Things like this are some of the easiest ways to kind of fight this long-term in a slow, careful, methodical fashion. So I really hope that helps you, Lori. Thank you so much for your email, especially all the way from Scotland. If you need my help, do you need an Aquarium 911? There are details in the description down below. Just watch the video. Please try to include as much information as you can, especially the particular ones I ask for in that video. Please, 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 please watch that video because it helps me get to the root of your problem faster and give you the best advice possible. If you've enjoyed this video, consider giving it a like. And if you learned something, or maybe you have your own personal trick for dealing with black-beard algae, leave it in the comments down below. I'd love to hear from you. If you're not subscribed, consider subscribing. That like, comment, subscribe are literally the best and most powerful ways, completely free, to tell old Papa YouTube, I like what this person is doing, and I know someone else will too. It helps our channels grow. It prevents us from needing dumb sponsorships, all that usual stuff. As always, my friends, thank you so much for watching, and stay awesome.